25th.
Can I have a sip of G&T?
Absolutely. Damn it, can I have one?
Well, please.
I don't have it. Well, there is some gin in the other room. What a good idea.
It's just that time, you know.
Yes. So let's get going. Welcome, John. It's lovely to have you here this evening for a short teaser for our forthcoming interview. You're going to be sitting on the Ethical Hedonist virtual sofa on the 25th of March between 6:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. for me to grill you about your escapades over the last 50 years. One thing I'd like to ask you is, do you think that your job as a foreign correspondent will still exist in the way that you have conducted it for the past 50 years in 20 years from now?
Well, you know, to be absolutely honest, I think it's already evaporated. Really, everything is different now. I mean, I still do some reporting, do quite a lot of reporting for the BBC, but it's very, very different from how most of my 15 plus years with the BBC have gone. The days when you could just kind of fly into a place, find the stories, send them back over a period of time, of days, sometimes weeks, that's really over. The money's not there. All the kind of health and safety things mean that you've got to jump through hoops to get there in the first place, to persuade everybody that it's safe. I mean, whoever said journalism was supposed to be a safe profession?
Well, it's not a safe profession, you know. It's an insecure but one-of-a-kind profession, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's how I like it. But it is different now, and you know, you just have to come to terms with the changes. But the days when you could really just kind of, where you were like a kind of a buccaneer going around the place and finding the stories for yourself, those days have pretty much gone, sadly.
That's a great shame. Looking back at the interviews you've done, who would stand out for you as someone, as an encounter that you will never forget?
Well, there's so many of them, to be honest.
Well, I've been reading your autobiography. It's a matter of
there are quite a few in there.
Well, Osama bin Laden springs.
Osama bin Laden, my interview him, I was kind of, I was stopped, threatened, and almost murdered by him. It was outside the town of Jalalabad in eastern Afghanistan, where he was operating, and he just we just came across him as we were filming a group of mujahideen firing mortars at the city, which was still occupied that stage by pro-Russian forces. And well, he tried to
counter, wasn't it? I mean, he ordered the people around you to kill you.
Well, he had a vote, actually. Well, at least they decided to have a vote on it. There were 9 of them. And 4 said, yeah, all right, yeah, kill him. And 5 said, I don't know, you know, it's a bit late in the afternoon, all that kind of stuff. And then, so, you know, thanks to democracy, we were left alive. But then he went over to the driver of an ammunition truck and gave him, I think, offered him $500 to come and run us down. I was obscurely offended, actually, by the thought that I was only worth $500. Anyway, the guy refused, and Osama then sort of flounced off. I did actually get a letter from him some years later in reply to request for an interview. And he said he watched the BBC quite a lot, but at the moment, because he was the guest of the Afghan government, he thought they didn't want him to do any talking. I've got the letter somewhere, and I ought to try and dig it out and show you.
I'd love to see it. What would you say to someone thinking about becoming a journalist now? Perhaps they're either studying for their A-levels or they're at university and they're considering a career in journalism. I certainly don't think it's very easy to go into journalism.
It's not easy. There's absolutely no money in it, but there's an immense amount of interest and fun and excitement in it. If I were starting off now, I wouldn't go anywhere near any of the big organizations because I think they are so rule bound. I'd just think of a place on the globe and go there.
And we'll then start reporting.
I mean, find the money, dig the money up from somewhere, and then start sending in stories to everybody, to a whole range of newspapers and television organizations and radio organizations across the world. Again, terribly difficult to do at the start, and sell the stories. And if the stories are good enough, people will want them from you.
Yeah, become a guerrilla reporter. And technology to your advantage, because technology has been a real hassle for a lot of us as journalists, because we have to compete with people who are marketing geniuses and generally creative people, writers and journalists. And we're not good at marketing ourselves.
Not very, no.
Yeah, pretty hopeless. And in the past we didn't have to. But now, if you want to be a journalist online, you've got to find a way to engage your audience. And I think it means using some of the same skills that you learn as a journalist to put yourself out there and come to the attention of your ideal audience. But there's just so much noise and there are so many people online. It's how you want to keep your integrity and succeed online. I don't think it's easy, but I think you've just got to find a way to shout louder than everybody else in your and find a niche. Probably is the answer. That sounds like really good advice, John. I'm really looking forward to the interview on the 25th. It's going to be a lot of fun. I wanted to ask you, where do you get your cigars? Do you get them in St. James's?
Well, cigars are rather nowadays, not, they're rather out of my reach. I mean, I do smoke an occasional cigar when I feel I've got something to celebrate. There hasn't been a huge amount to celebrate. No, that's perhaps not true, but it's also difficult. I mean, it's actually, I've got a 15-year-old son. It's illegal for me to smoke a cigar indoors, so I have to go and stand out in the garden or something. And there are limited moments when the weather allows that. So,
have you ever shared a cigar with any of your fascinating and dangerous interview subjects?
I should have had a cigar with Fidel Castro, but when I found him and had a long interview, and Castro was a guy that gave 7-hour speeches. So when you do a doorstep interview, just throw him a question. Well, he went on for, I think, 38 minutes answering a fairly simple question. It could have actually been answered with a yes or no. He went on for 35 minutes. The cameraman, a very large and tough South African, looked at me, was sweating in it must have been about 110 degree heat. And there was Castro still going on and talking, and the cameraman looked round at me and said, "When's this fucker going to stop talking?" Another 15 minutes, I think, after that, actually.
Didn't you dare interrupt him, John?
What?
Didn't you dare interrupt him? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, I did. But I mean, he didn't take
all
much
been in
notice.
where we're losing the will to carry on because they just go on and on and on.
Yes, actually, it was quite interesting. And he said to me, you know, when you're in that position, you don't care what you say or what anybody thinks about it. So he was talking to me about how boring and unpleasant it was to be the Cuban head of Cuba, and how he couldn't wait to get away from it, and how he was going to resign in 4 years. I mean, none of this happened, of course. But he was very jovial, though. I did take to him, and if I'd been able to whip out a cohiba or something and offer him one, he'd have had it. I'd have been delighted, but I think the BBC might not have agreed to run that bit.
They might not have liked the expense either. That's very what wonderful stories. I can't wait to ask you about more of your adventures as a foreign correspondent on the 25th. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.